I don't know if anybody noticed in there, I've got a pocket full of these wonderful witty things or trivia from the Bible. Anybody notice from Joshua, the reading there? Which man in the Old Testament had no father? Joshua, the son of Nun. Duh. Okay, here we go. It says, don't you love those groaners? It says in Psalm 122, I rejoiced with those who said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Last week, we asked ourselves, how can I say that and really mean it? Even church members sometimes have difficulty saying that they're eager to go to church. Yet Sunday was meant to be the best day of the week. God blessed the Sabbath, intended it to be a day of rest and worship because we need it. And when we observe the Sabbath, our lives go better. Today we're continuing this series, the best day of the week. My hope is that by the end of this series of messages, you'll realize how observing the Sabbath will help you have a great week and a great life. And I hope you'll continue to be here on Sundays. Then we'll all be able to enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise and give thanks to him and praise his name and really mean it. So I want you to do something right now. I want you to take just a few moments to make up a list of the things you love. You can write it down on back piece of paper or make a list in your mind, the things that you love. It might include people like your spouse, your family, your friends. Maybe it would include some things that you really love, like ice cream or maybe your car or naps. Maybe there's certain events you really love, certain kind of concerts or gatherings. How come some of you are gritting your teeth? Come on, it can't be that hard. Things you love. Surely there's one or two people you could start with on your list. Other things that you love, certain kind of foods, certain kind of use of your time. Now, I know that if I gave you a lot more time, you could come up with a very long list of the things you love. But would your list include, I love Sundays? Huh? My hope is that over the next several weeks, that will be added to the list of the things you love. I love Sundays. Mechanics know that with some machines, there are pressure valves. If you got something that's under pressure, sometimes you need a valve to release that pressure. You all have experience with pressure valves if you have a garden hose at your home. That spigot is actually a pressure valve. And when you turn it to open it up, it lets all that built-up pressure of water to come out through your hose. That's a pressure valve. During Jesus' day, the Jews had all sorts of laws about what you could and couldn't do on the Sabbath. And they're all derived from the 10 Commandments, the fourth commandment being, you shall honor the Sabbath and keep it holy. And so they developed a whole set of laws that would guide your living on that day so that you would make it a holy day. And people debated these laws, all kinds of different minutiae about that. You can read a little bit about that in the New Testament. But one Sabbath day, Jesus clarified God's purpose for the Sabbath once and for all when he said, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. His words are a reminder that God knew that we would need a day to take a break from work and refuel, refresh, and refocus. So when God was arranging the rhythm of the world, he designated one day for that. Sunday was meant to be the best day of the week because it's the key to making a life better. The problem is that here we are in 2015 in America, and we live in a never-stopping, never-slowing culture where things are happening 24/7, and we never have enough time for all the things that we need to get done, all the deadlines we face, all the people we need to interact with, all the information that we need to sift through as it comes our way. You know, with our digital devices, we can be in contact and contacting and interacting all the time, right? Never ending. The pressure to get through it all, the pressure to achieve, to produce, can build up day after day. And we need to release some of that pressure before we crack up. Your work is necessary, friends, absolutely necessary, even a noble thing. Don't neglect it. As it says in Ecclesiastes, a man could do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in his work, and this too I see is from the hand of God. But Sabbath rest is also necessary. Release the pressure. Rest in the assurance that through it all, ultimately, God has it in hand. We're responsible for our lives, but God is really running the whole show. Slow down, experience the smile of God, enjoy family. And so I hope that when you come here, you can relax, be challenged in a good way, and leave here feeling the weight lifted from your shoulders. Now, those who get a lot less done on Sundays often get a lot more done on Mondays. After a rest, they're ready to dive into their work. Athletes know this. They know that they perform better when they work very hard and then rest. Work very hard and then rest, instead of working hard all the time. Our muscles were actually designed that way. Stress, release, stress, release. Our souls are that way also. The Bible teaches us that. So I say, if the Bible teaches that, why not follow the book? The Old Testament tells how Moses led the nation of Israel out of slavery in Egypt. And then they spent the next 40 years on a long camping out in various places in the wilderness. And then as they got ready to enter into the promised land that God was giving them, God visited their leader Joshua once again, and he gave him some advice about priorities. It says there in Joshua, "Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful." It's kind of like God is saying, hey, Joshua, once you and your people settle in here to this new land, I think you're going to get tempted to do all kinds of stuff. One of them is to work real hard all the time so you can get ahead. But if you work without ceasing, you're not going to get ahead. In fact, you'll find yourself falling behind. The real secret to getting ahead is to spend time in this book. Because if you get into this book will get into you. And if this book gets into you, you will become the kind of person who will become prosperous and successful. It's about character building. In 18th century England, John and Charles Wesley started a movement that grew to 100,000 weekly Bible studies across England and Ireland and some of Scotland, even spread across the pond to America. Some historians say that the Wesleyan revival that happened in England in the 18th century is what prevented a violent revolution in that land, unlike what happened across the Channel in France, where there was a revolution and blood ran in the streets. The character of the English people was widely impacted by these Bible studies. In 1857, Jeremiah Lanphier started a noontime prayer meeting in the Dutch Reformed Church in downtown New York City. It sparked a movement of Bible reading across the country. This was in the era starting in the 1840s, when there were camp meeting revivals in America, when there was the Sunday school movement that got started, and along with all those Methodist circuit riders, those dang Methodist preachers all over fanning across the country. In college, I remember reading a history book that recorded the drop in the crime rate in America after each of these Christian revivals. Reading the Bible and going to church makes a positive difference in people's lives and in the life of the nation. And it's no wonder that America became the most prosperous nation on earth. People today say they're just too busy to read the Bible. They got other things to do. They got work to do. But if you read the Bible regularly, you'll become the sort of person who finds success, who attracts success. The same is true with the Sabbath. Sometimes the best way to be productive is to rest and refuel for a day. The way to make your Mondays better is to start with your Sundays. Friends, there is a rhythm of life. In the Bible, God prescribes 52 Sabbaths a year as part of our health maintenance plan. You didn't realize that God invented HMOs, did you? There it is. That's 7.5 weeks of spiritual rejuvenation. God wired us to run best on a rhythm of engagement, then withdrawal. Engagement, then withdrawal. Stress, then release. This pattern is sewn into the fabric of the universe. Days were made for work, nights for rest. 6 days to work, the seventh day to rest. A Sunday rest day is part of our divinely designed nature. It's a day to look at the big picture, God's plan, and let go of the stress and the anxiety over all the details. Relax. God's got it. God's secret for riding in triumph is to call the Sabbath a delight, which means that Sunday ought to be the best day of your week. So how can we make that happen? I want to take a look at that. First point, how to make Sunday the best day of the week. What would that look like? Well, if we go to the Bible, we find a clue to what that would look like. If you keep your feet from breaking the Sabbath and from doing as you please on my holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight and the Lord's holy day honorable, and if you honor it by not going your own way, not doing as you please or speaking idle words, then you will find your joy in the Lord, and I will cause you to ride in triumph on the heights of the land. So here's 3 steps that we need to take to make the Sabbath holy. Number 1, honor God's rhythm for your life. You can probably find it somewhere on YouTube, as you can just about anything these days, a video of former Senator Joe Lieberman from Connecticut being interviewed, and he's asked a question, and here's what he says. Sometimes people say to me, in your life with all the responsibilities, how can you possibly stop on one day a week to observe the Sabbath? Part of my answer is, how could I not stop? For many Jews, celebrating the Sabbath is the high point of the week. I observed this kind of thing happening with the number of Jewish families that lived around us in our neighborhood when we were up in the Bay Area. On Saturday mornings, you would see them walking by, and Saturday early afternoon, they'd be coming walking back. Whole families walking. They were going to services. Or anybody here know anything about baseball? As much as Herb Taylor knows about baseball? Okay, 1965 World Series. Who was playing? Yeah, I know. Wrong team, so that means it's the LA Dodgers. And the other team was? That's right, Minnesota Twins. And the star pitcher for the Dodgers was? Sandy Koufax, Jewish guy. So he's scheduled, they get to the World Series, he's scheduled in the rotation of pitchers to pitch this certain game on a certain day, and he says to the manager, I can't pitch that day, it's Yom Kippur. That's one of the holy days, the Day of Atonement for Jews. Everybody's got to go to synagogue on that day and worship God. And so his manager says, that's okay, we'll schedule for another time. His teammates said, that's fine, we understand. The press gave him hell. What do you mean you can't this is the World Series, man. This is the most important game in the world, blah, 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 blah. He sat out that game. Long story short, turns out he ended up pitching in the 7th game of that World Series and winning it for the Dodgers. Sandy Koufax. To avoid even the slightest amount of work, so I've been told, like pushing an elevator button, for example, Israeli elevators over in Israel are programmed to stop and open on every floor on the Sabbath, from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. Now, this might seem kind of extreme to us because, we live in a country where, you do whatever you want any day of the week pretty much. But just imagine if you were there in Israel or someplace where the elevator stopped at every floor on the Sabbath so you wouldn't have to touch any buttons, do any work. Every floor, every stop would remind you that there is a God and there is a day to release, worship him, and be glad for this day. Or it would remind you that you're in a great big hurry to get to the top floor and you're really ticked off that you have to go to every floor. I mean, your choice. Jewish people celebrate the Sabbath on the 7th day to remind them that on the 7th day, God rested from his labor of creation. And because the resurrection of Jesus occurred on the first day, that is Sunday, Christians have adopted that as the day of rest, their Sabbath, with all the meaning of the Sabbath that the Jews give to their day on Saturday. But the principle is the same, friends. Take a day to rest from your labor and worship God. Build it around God and family. Make the Sabbath a delight. Second step in this rhythm of life thing is remember and observe the Sabbath. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. It says in Exodus, Moses gave the 10 Commandments. There's the 4th one. Remember is a verb that looks back. The commandment says that after the Sabbath has passed, we should think back on it. Now, when we get to the book of Deuteronomy, which means second law, it records how Moses gave the 10 Commandments to the Israelites a second time, or at least it's recorded a second time that the 10 Commandments are presented to the people right before they entered the promised land. And there it says, observe the Sabbath by keeping it holy as the Lord your God has commanded you. Observe the Sabbath. Did you notice the difference in the verbs from the Exodus 10 Commandments and the Deuteronomy 10 Commandments? In Exodus it says, remember the Sabbath. Deuteronomy, it says, observe. Remember means to look back. Observe means to look forward. They're about to enter the promised land. He's telling them, observe the Sabbath when you get there. You're going to have a lifestyle change. Observe this. Now, many Jews actually operate this way. The first few days after the Sabbath, they remember by looking back on the Sabbath. And the last few days before the Sabbath, they observe by looking forward to its coming. You all know what it means to look forward to something. There's a great movie coming out that you want to see. And so you look up the times and the place where it's going to be showing, and you pick a date and a time that you're going to go to this movie. And so you think about it, maybe even talk about it with some friends and family. You look forward to it. Or maybe there's a big game coming up of your team against their arch rivals. And so you think about it. You talk about it with your friends. You go over and over what might happen. You're looking forward to it. That's observing that. Then after you've seen the movie or you've gone to the game, it was a great movie, it was a great game, you talk about it for a number of days following that. Remember, observe. Remember, observe. That's God's rhythm. What if, just what if this afternoon and tomorrow morning, You talked with your family or your friends about what you learned in church today. I mean, I give you a crib sheet to take home every Sunday. You could write a few notes. What if you took that home and pulled it out and started a discussion with friends or family that were with you? Or what if this Friday you posted on your Facebook, "Sunday's coming," or "I can't wait for Sunday," and let others know that you're looking forward to being in church on Sunday? I mean, what if you got an email from the pastor on Thursday or Friday that said Sunday's coming? Well, I found out some people said, "Well, it made me feel guilty." Hey, whatever works. What if you started thinking about that and sharing that with others about what you might experience on church on Sunday and getting excited about that? You know that behavior can actually affect your feelings and your thinking. Did you know that? Some people operate on this principle. When I feel good, I'll do it. They mostly never do it. Others say, when I do it, I'll feel good. And they're the ones who get more out of life. That's how it works with Sundays. You put more effort into it, and you're going to get more out of it. Isaiah 58 says, we should call the Sabbath a delight. What if you don't feel like the Sabbath is a delight? If you will make a decision to call the Sabbath a delight and to act like it is a delight, you will begin to feel like the Sabbath is a delight. Third point I want to make about this rhythm of life is prepare for Sunday as if it's the highlight of your week. Now, I'm talking now about behavior and how it affects your thinking and your feeling. Remember, I just said, decide the Sabbath is going to be a delight, call it a delight, act like it's so. And a lot of you are thinking, well, yeah, but I don't feel like it. I'm telling you here's how to get to feeling like it. Prepare for Sunday as if it's the highlight of your week. King David once said, I rejoiced with those who said to me, let's go to the house of the Lord. I mean, he was fired up about going to church because it was the high point of his week. So how could that happen for you? Going to church, the high point of your week. What makes an event go from good to great, from mediocre to great, is preparation. Okay, let me give you an example. Let's say that the Jones family goes out and does something really fun on Saturday night. Let's say the Jones family gets up Saturday morning and says, we're going to go to Universal Studios today and have a great time. And they get home about midnight. And then they sleep until the very last minute Sunday morning. And they rush to get ready for church, stumbling over each other for bathroom and breakfast and clothing and this and that. And they pile into the car all angry and bickering with one another all the way to church. And then they get to the parking lot. I know that has never happened in your home. People have never been late on Sunday morning to get ready to go or anything like that. It doesn't happen, right? Okay, but so I'm just asking you to use your imaginations, okay? You know, there's one fortunate thing is that church parking lots have a miraculous healing effect on most families. Nobody really wants to look bad at church. So when people turn into the church parking lot, I mean, calmness comes over them just like Jesus calmed the sea. One pastor calls the church's parking lot the miracle corner because that's the place where sinners turn into saints and chaos becomes tranquility. I know that sometimes, not anybody here, of course, but sometimes it does happen that a carload of competitors becomes a boatload of bliss. Think about it, though. How hard is it to have a great experience at church if you've had a miserable experience getting here? It's pretty hard, isn't it? I mean, you can paint on the smile and grit your teeth and, yeah, fine, I'm doing great. But inside, it doesn't feel so good. One of the greatest things about church, though, is that so often when people walk in a mess, they walk out at peace. Just imagine if you walked into church already at peace, how much more you would get out of it. Actually, if you came here already at peace with God, calling the Sabbath a delight, you'd walk out of here with joy. So let's rewind the Jones family weekend for just a minute. What if, instead of staying up late on Saturday night, what if they changed their pattern and they did something on Friday night where they could stay out late? What if Mr. and Mrs. Jones developed a plan for preparing for Sunday like it was the highlight of the week? Maybe on Saturday morning, everybody decides what they want to wear to church on Sunday morning. There's still time to get all the clothing ready to go. What if the kids and then mom and dad have an early or normal bedtime on Saturday night? Lights out at a certain time. What kind of difference would it make in your church experience if every member of your family woke up rested on Sunday morning and everything you wanted to wear was ready to go on Sunday morning, huh? Daryl, you struggling in your household getting everybody together on that one? Yeah. Daryl's single, he lives alone, so.
Yeah, I just pick up my clothes, my outfit out 20 minutes before.
20 minutes before, yeah. You don't argue with yourself on Sunday morning, do you? Sometimes you do, okay. Well, this is for you. Thanks for playing along. If you have teens in your household, let's pray. Now, if you have teens, you might come up with a mutually acceptable plan for Sunday mornings. You might at the least come up with a peace treaty, for Sunday mornings. What if you kind of had a family huddle and talked about how long each member of the family is going to need to use the restroom, to dress, to eat breakfast? And, here's the great deal here at First Church. We've already done one of the hardest things for you on Sunday morning. You can have breakfast here at church. You don't have to plan that at your own home. You can come here and do it. But what if you had everything planned out so that you weren't yelling at each other and beginning Sunday morning with hard feelings on the way to church? Single parents, you might huddle with your kids and try to talk through this. So let's replay Sunday morning. Now, I know this might never happen, but just imagine with me for a minute. If it takes your family 15 minutes to drive to church, what if you all got in the car 25 minutes before church started and drove over here under the speed limit with no... I told you, just imagine for a moment, okay? So you drive over here with plenty of time under the speed limit, no honking, no bickering, none of that stuff. And maybe you sing a verse of some song along the way or whatever. And you get out of the car here in the parking lot and you actually have time to walk leisurely to the sanctuary. You even have time to greet other people. You could stop maybe in the lobby and have a conversation with somebody and still arrive in your seats with time to spare. Wow. Now, I know this might be a fantasy, but I got to tell you that your pastor would be thrilled, and you might enjoy it yourself as well. The difference between a good Sunday and a great Sunday is in the advanced preparation. Makes the difference. Let's go to part B, how you can actually change the rhythm of your life. Now, gathered by the reaction I've gotten on that last section about Sunday mornings preparing, I gathered that there's room to change the rhythm in your life. So it's all in the preparation, folks. It's all in the preparation. So let me offer some suggestions. Number one, block out the next 4 Sundays. It might be too much to expect to change your whole life with just one sermon. So let's just start with this. What if you blocked out the next 4 weeks on your calendar and said, we're not going anywhere on Sunday mornings except to church for the next 4 weeks? Get out your smartphone, put it in there. You know, most smartphones have the calendar app, and you can designate something to be a recurring event. Huh? You could put it in there every Sunday, church, and, you know, highlight it in red or yellow or whatever color catches your attention. Schedule it in there, just like you'd schedule an appointment with a good friend or something important you got to go to work for or a deadline. Schedule it in there. Number 2, make an advance plan. Sometime today, before the idea wears off, sit down with your family or those you come to church with and talk about the kind of preparation you need in order to arrive here next Sunday smiling with a real smile and on time. Huh? Talk about it with those you're traveling or coming to church with. Do you want to put your clothes out the night before? Or set the table for breakfast? Well, I just said you don't need to do that actually here. We got breakfast for you. You'd have to come a little bit earlier so you had time for the breakfast there. What time are you going to go to bed on Saturday night? What time are you going to leave for church in the morning? Then, to make sure you have fun, what are you going to do on Friday night instead of Saturday night? You know, the U.S. Marines have a saying that really works all through life. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Plan for church just like you'd plan for a very important or a formal occasion. Number 2, observe next Sunday. What did I say? I said look forward to next Sunday. Observe next Sunday. To start looking forward to next Sunday, maybe you could post on your Facebook, like I said, or send an email to other family members or friends that Sunday's coming. I'm looking forward to church this Sunday. Or, you know, tweet it out to whoever. Does anybody use Twitter? You know? Tweet, whatever. What's the other ones? There's all kinds of media you can use. You can put out there, Sunday's coming. I'm looking forward to Sunday. I mean, who knows? If enough of you did this, we might start a whole movement around here. If you call the Sabbath a delight, and the Lord's holy day honorable, if you honor it, then you will find your joy in the Lord, and those feelings that you were looking for will be there. Sunday was meant to be the best day of your week. I'm going to prepare for it. As a matter of fact, this is cheating, but I start preparing for Sunday on Monday. Yeah, I do. But I'm going to start preparing for Sunday not as though it's another one of my work days, but as though it's the delight and the highlight of my week. If you're here next Sunday, then I know it's going to be a delight. So I'll see you all here next Sunday.